Hey everyone, it's Scott Keys from Wildlife Inspired. My social media stuff is down there at the bottom. And today I'm really excited because we're in the middle of migration right now. It's early May, and this episode is going to talk about tips and tricks for improving your photography during migration. Now, to help me out, I brought a bunch of great photographers and a few friends along as well. So they're going to jump in and give you some of their favorite tips for photographing during this time period. And I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, Brad Oulette here from Southern Ontario, Canada. You can find my images on Instagram at BradO Photography. I'd like to thank Scott Keys for having me on here for the migration tips. I'm going to be talking about two in particular, one being Birdcast and the other one being eBird. Now Birdcast is definitely one you're going to want to check out. It's basically a map that shows the intensities of the bird migration. So when the sun sets and the birds take flight, on this map it'll light up bright colors of pink, purple, orange. So the brighter the colors, the more traffic of migration. So for example, if you're in Pennsylvania or state of Ohio and it's lit up bright orange, I would definitely get out the following morning. You'll have a great potential of fallouts. It's a great tool to keep in mind during migration. And the other one is eBird. Now I use that one daily, but during migration I like to use it because I'm across the lake from Ohio in Ontario. So I'll actually track the migration as it heads north. So I'll go on Ohio and look up what's been spotted there. So let's say pine warblers or Louisiana water thrushes are being seen in Ohio. So I know in the next few days here in Ontario we should start seeing pine warblers or water thrushes or yellow rumps. Also, you can also track back years previous to other sightings and track the dates so you know exactly what times things are being seen, which is a huge help. So I hope those tips help you, and we'll have a great day.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me on. I'm Tobias Yoder, and I'm a nature photographer based out of Central Texas, and I'm going to be talking about scouting as it relates to spring migration. So this is somewhat related to what Brad was just talking about with the web resources that you can use, but I'm going to talk about more once you're at a location, identifying it as being a good spot for photography. So the first thing to recognize is that those are different things, and that what eBird may seem to be the best location might not actually be what is the best location to shoot in reality. An example that comes to mind is a wastewater treatment plant near where I live, where there are tons of ducks and waterfowl, but you can't even really get on eye level with them, which makes it tough for photography, and you also can't get in the water. So kind of just recognizing that what eBird is showing you has the most species is not the same as what the best spot to go to is. Another thing that comes to mind when it comes to scouting is thinking about what conditions will make a given place be ideal. So if you're in a wooded area shooting warblers, then you may want overcast conditions to have a longer time to shoot and not deal with dappled lighting, which can be tough to work in sometimes. While if you were shooting for say shorebirds, then you may want a bright sunny day because you know you can get that first morning and last evening light in that flat open area. So the next thing I would like to talk about is the importance of just exploring new areas and just checking places out. It can be easy to get into a rut of going to the same places over and over again, but just spending that extra 45 minutes to an hour to look at a new area, I think can be really great. I shoot with my cousin sometimes, and something he's really good about is taking me to places that I would never go to before, and places that are completely, not popular hotspots in eBird, not well-known locations. I think everyone would be surprised how much they could find if they just look, because if you don't look, then you'll never find things.
Hi everyone, my name's Cameron Darnell from CameronDarnellPhotography.com. I'm here with you today to share some tips about migration, specifically shorebird migration, and then secondly, how to find shorebirds through eBird and how to scout locations once you're out in the field for shorebird photography. Here I am in the eBird homepage. It's a citizen science database done by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I'm going to click Explore, then Species Maps, and say there's a particular species that I want to find. Say it's a short-billed dowitcher. I'm going to click that in the species. When I go to date, I'm going to click when short-billed dowitchers are often found in fall in Massachusetts. So that's August to September. Next, I'm going to click past 10 years because you don't want birds from the 1900s. And then I'm going to set the date range and then go to location and click Cape Cod. You can see there are all these hotspots here, and you pick a hotspot based on the number of sightings and how recent the sightings are. So those are recent sightings, but there are not that many of them. That's pretty good, but the last one's from 2018. You really want more recent sightings. Here's one with a lot of sightings that are recent sightings. They go back to 2013, which means the birds have been migrating through there for a long time. And the numbers are pretty good. You have 15, 6, 16. And then multiple people as well have seen them, which means it's not just one person identifying a bird that maybe could misidentify a bird. So this looks like a good spot. Next time I'm going to show you the process that I do when I'm out in the field to scout these locations. After you're done finding the location in eBird, the next step is to scout it in person. I see if the birds are there first. If they're there, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily always mean a good birding spot is going to be a good photography spot. Next, I check the lighting conditions. If I'm not there at golden hour, I have to use the compass app on my phone to see what direction in the sky the sunrise and sunset would be if I was there at that time of day. I'm seeing if there's a berm or some trees or a dune, something blocking it. If there is, it's not good. If there isn't, then the sunrise is going to be golden and streaming over the whole area and you're good. Next step is to check the background conditions. If there's kind of some seaweed, some muddy stuff, debris on the beach, then that's not good for backgrounds for shorebird photography. You want more clean sand, clean backgrounds that aren't going to be debris filled and distracting. And if that's the case, you don't want to go there. If the backgrounds are good, then you're good. And that's kind of the next step for scouting. Lastly, I'll just kind of look over the whole area, see if there are a lot of people there. Beaches often have a lot of people. If there are a lot of people, shorebird photography is going to be tough because the people will walk by and spook them. So you want to have a place that's a little more secluded for shorebird photography. And then next step is to go out and shoot.
Hi everyone, I'm Katherine Senwickenstein, a nature photographer based out of Cambridge, Mass. You can find me on Instagram at ksaynwit. Thanks, Scott, for having me here to share some insights that I've learned about migrating birds. One of the keys to success is to understand that the behavior of migrating birds is very different from that of breeding migrants and year-round resident birds. Understanding the difference will help you be prepared and successful for the short migration period. Nothing is more exciting than walking out your door to all sorts of new sounds and bird activity in the treetops. You will likely have visions of nailing shot after shot, but it can be really difficult. This photo of a Canada warbler belly is a great example of no plan. Good for the purpose of ID, but not much else. You need to have a plan, be prepared, be fast, and stay focused to get the most out of the short time that they are around. Migrant birds only have a few things on their agenda, and those are food, drink, and rest. They will be feeding near the fresh buds where the caterpillars will be most abundant, which tends to be higher up, making it tough to get good images. Bear this in mind when choosing a location and deciding where to shoot. Ideally, you will select one that is close and easy to get to, and start scouting for a good swath of woods, perhaps with a small pond or stream. Once you find an area of high activity and you watch closely, you'll notice that birds will revisit a good spot over and over again. A few years ago, we had a rare male prothonotary warbler at a nearby location. I spent so much time trying to catch up to the bird when I soon realized that he would pop out on the same branch in a small pond every hour or so. I got caught up in the excitement and actually thought I'd outsmart this bird and get a great photo. Remaining still versus chasing your subject is a good rule of thumb for success with any wildlife at any time of year. Also, take note of trees with lots of bird activity. This activity is likely a sign that this type of tree is in peak bloom, providing the best food source. The most I saw in a single flowering tree was 27 species, which is in the span of a couple hours. If possible, position yourself somewhere with a nice background and open space where birds are likely to drop down, and be ready for the shot. In the heat of the day, birds will tend to rest in lower shrubs and bushes or near water. I took this shot of a Canada warbler mid-morning when the sun was blazing, but he was skulking through the rhododendrons. I had at least 3 good opportunities with this species by standing there for a few hours, compared to 0 decent opportunities in previous years when I had no plan. After I got this first shot, which was almost too close to focus, I moved to a clearing a few feet away and got this other image, which I'm showing right now. I'm not sure if it was the same bird or simply a preferred route for Canada warblers that day. I'll never know, but surely wouldn't have had any opportunities had I not looked locked into this one spot and stay put. Head out for that prime light, but if you have continued activity throughout the day, take advantage and enjoy it while it lasts.
My name is Christopher Joe, owner of Connecting with Birds and Nature Tours of New Bern, Alabama. Today I'd like to be talking to you all about spring migration and birding by ear. As we all know, those springtime birds and their travel routes, and sometimes you may want to try to pinpoint exactly what you're hearing. I'll tell you how I do my spring migration. The app I like to use is the Maryland Bird ID app. You can go to your store, download that, and that way you can see what birds are more likely in your area at the time, and you can also play some of those sounds that they have. And that way you can train your ears to listen to those sounds. So now that you have downloaded your app, you're ready to go out and see where you can see this spring migration period. So let's get out there and do some good spring birding this time. And also, if you would, please stop by my YouTube channel as well as my website. See some of the wonderful things we're doing in the bird conservation in the Alabama Black Belt. Also, if you would, and in the area, please stop by, contact me at my email provided, schedule your own tour, and let's bird together.
Hi, my name is Jason Jablonski. I'm a photographer based in Northwest Indiana, just a few miles south of Lake Michigan. And this is my water feature. So I built it about 3 years ago now. It was very inexpensive and it took me around 2 days to construct and get up and running. But the fun part of having a water feature like this is the flexibility it allows you to have. So from season to season, I'm able to change out maybe some cool perches that I've found. I have adjusted the bathing area to give me a little more room to try to capture reflection shots when the birds come down and bathe. But the most important part is that you observe the birds that come through your backyard. Most birds will come down to a feeder or a water feature in stages, and they're fairly regular about that. They like to come down and observe what's going on around to make sure it's safe before they come down. So I've tried to place those perches in spots where I've noticed that they stage and they will rest on until they feel safe to come down and bathe or to feed. So it's been a lot of fun. I've had more success than I imagined I would. And here are some of the photos that I've taken over the past few years.
Hey there, I'm Jaymi Heimbuch. I'm a wildlife conservation photographer based out of Astoria, Oregon, and I run wildidealab.com. And I am so excited to be here to share my very favorite tip about photographing migrating birds. And that is to always put content as your top priority when you're photographing birds. See, we get so wrapped up in the whole idea of technical quality, making sure that our image is tack sharp and that our exposure is perfect and all of these things that are indeed important. But focusing so much on technical quality can often mean that we forget about the content. And the content is truly the soul of the image. When you're photographing migrating birds, there's so much story there. There's the epic journey that these birds are taking. There is their behavior inside of a flock. There's maybe feeding behaviors or resting behaviors. There's so much story there. So really think about putting content or what it is that you're photographing as a top priority whenever you pick up the camera. So by this, I mean, make sure that when you're photographing, you're thinking about what the bird's doing, what behavior is happening, or what the light's doing that kind of illustrates a little bit of the personality of the bird or the situation that they're in. Something that really helps to illustrate the story of a migrating bird, that individual or that part of a larger flock. And when you do this, two really important things happen. First, your images are always going to be really unique because you're focused on behavior, because you're focused on story and content. Your images will always stand out from the crowd. It's never going to be just one more, yes, tack sharp, beautifully lit portrait, but boring portrait. It's always going to stand out as something that tells a story and that's unique. And the second important thing that happens when you always put content as a top priority is you have more fun photographing because you're connecting with your subject. You're really thinking about them. You're studying movement. You're studying flock behavior. You're predicting action. And you're paying so much attention to that individual bird or that species of bird inside of a flock that you really connect to them and the moment. So content, top priority for me every time I go out to shoot. And I hope that it's something that you'll consider the next time you head out to shoot as well. I hope that you enjoy this quick tip and that you enjoy all the tips from all the other amazing photographers that are part of this series. Thanks so much.
Well, so what a great bunch of tips and some really beautiful photos thrown in there as well. What I'll do over here is I'll put a screen on the other side and I'll actually list and summarize the tips that we covered today for you. So for those who skip to the end, here it is. We started with Brad talking about the importance of birdcast and eBird and how you can use those tools to predict movement of birds and also specific species. So if you've got a target species in mind, it might help you to find that species and locate some of those hot spots where you could find it. Tobias covered scouting. So even though you know what the location on paper may pose in terms of species and numbers, does it photograph well? And Tobias talked about the importance of understanding the locations and how eBird can be a tool, but you really have to get your own eyes on an area to understand if it'll actually work. Now, Cameron tied in the two concepts that were discussed earlier, both eBird and scouting locations, but talked specifically about shorebirds. Now, remember, shorebirds migrate the same way that songbirds do and can be equally as beautiful. But one of the challenges around shorebirds is getting that really great light. So when you're scouting those locations, make sure you're really paying attention to light in that process. What a great reminder about behavior from Kathrine. She really discussed how migratory birds just act differently than breeding birds. So when you are photographing those migratory birds, you almost have to put yourself in their mindset. What are they looking for? Food. They're moving to move quickly and maybe looking for water sources as well. How can you maximize that to your advantage? Where can you put yourself to predict the behavior? And sometimes just being really, really patient and waiting it out is the best approach. I was really happy to bring Chris into the video today because he brings us a birding perspective and talked about the importance of birding by ear. Now remember, just understanding the birds that live there year round and what they sound like can help eliminate a lot of wasted time during migration. We don't have a lot of time, so we really want to maximize it. So birding by ear and just understanding bird behavior in general can make such a difference in your photography. A lot of great photographers out there who don't help themselves always by understanding the behavior of the species that they're working with, and certainly birding by ear is a big part of that. In addition to food, migrants need water. Jason talked about the importance of water, but he also showed us how to maximize it on his own property. What a great setup he's got. Some of those images are really, really great. It's actually how I discovered Jason on social media, was through those backyard photographs that he was taking. Really, really impressive. But remember, it doesn't always have to be in your backyard. Bodies of water anywhere will tend to accumulate migrants, both shorebird and songbird. They may be feeding along the edges near a wooded area or a meadow, but often they will be drawn to sources of water. And in those fallout situations, watch your lakes, your rivers, and your ponds during those downpours, because a lot of times the shorebirds and the waterfowl will get pushed down onto those lakes and give you a great opportunity for some photographs. And Jaymi gave us a really great reminder today on how important content is. I hope you get a chance to check out her website and her on social media as well, because she really is passionate about storytelling in her images and does a great job teaching it as well. So a really super reminder about not just the technical pieces that we're working at, not just creating the aesthetics, but also the story that's to be told in every image that we take. And for my tip, well, my tip is probably a combination of a little bit of everything. But if you think about what each individual talked about, there was this common theme around location. And I'm a big believer that while species are important, sometimes we get over focused on them. In fact, I did a video on the difference between birders and bird photographers and how often birders hyper focus on species. Now, this show is about photography, so I do try to bring it back to creating great images. And sometimes when we get hyper focused on species, it takes away from our ability to produce great images. I've always thought that locations are equally, if not more important than the species themselves. And during migration, that's just as important. So my biggest tip is to find those locations that just photograph beautifully. Now, sometimes the hot spots will work. So there are plenty of hotspots in the country where a lot of people get great images, sometimes shoulder to shoulder with other people, but you can do that. Personally, I like to find those spots on my own. I like to get out in nature and enjoy migration a little bit away from everybody and find those areas that photograph really beautifully. A couple hints around this. Look for low-lying scrub habitat. Sometimes in coastal areas, birds will congregate or get funneled into certain traps, and those are good migratory spots to shoot. Along those coastal areas and sometimes in scrub areas, the vegetation is very low, so naturally you're going to get those eye-level looks that you're looking for. Now, not everybody is fortunate to have that, so if you live in areas with taller vegetation, big trees, the birds will often be feeding at the top of the canopy. You may want to leverage elevation to your advantage. Find a mountain or a hill or a road that's cut into a mountain. And sometimes you'll get eye level looks just based off of how that road is cut into the mountain or a hill or an outlook that you might be fortunate enough to live nearby. So take a look at that as well. The key for me during migration is getting those eye level looks, and it isn't always easy, but there's a couple ways that you can help yourself when it comes to getting those great looks. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I really loved having these guests on. Hopefully you'll give them some love and support and check them out as well. I do want to thank you for your ongoing support. I appreciate that so much, and I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.